When taking a look back through history at some of gaming's most acclaimed and influential titles, you're bound to come across 1998's Metal Gear Solid. The game itself is a successor to the two Metal Gear games released previously for the MSX2, and no, not those ones. It continued the story that had already been established in the earlier titles, but since it was released on Sony's PlayStation, was fully able to take advantage of the system's 3D rendering capabilities. Being stored on a compact disc instead of a cartridge allowed the game to hold a lot more information. Hell, the game actually comes on 2 discs, and allowed it to make use of professional quality audio, that's music and dialogue. The game was a massive critical and commercial success. It launched the series into a multi-entry franchise including spin-offs and portable titles, and propelled the game's director Hideo Kojima's career into what it is today. It's gone on to influence other titles in the medium and push the boundaries of what was capable for a home console. This was largely down to its polished, stealth-based gameplay and cinematic style. The game literally opens with an opening credit sequence backed by movie-standard cinematography and an operatic score to set the scene. Kojima's love for all things cinema is prominently on display throughout most of Metal Gear Solid. From the dramatic plot revelations in the third act to the swift and stylish camera movements that occur when you lean up against a wall, the characters are somewhat cartoonish and evoke that cheesy dialogue made famous by the early Bond movies. The game is joyously self-aware and perfectly content to just have fun with itself. It doesn't feel the need to pander to its audience and hold their hand throughout the gameplay. It's happy just being itself. So let's talk about it. So a couple of days ago, I finally got around to playing Metal Gear Solid for the first time, and to be fair, I had an absolute blast playing through it. I think what makes the tone stand out is that it's bombastically silly without needing to resort to comic relief. Don't get me wrong, the game does have its humorous charm, but it manages to balance a certain level of campiness without it coming across as either accidental or just plain cheesy. I think it's easy to look at those mid-90s PS1 games like Resident Evil and laugh at how badly it's aged. The game is still great, it's a classic, but it does venture a bit more into the B-movie subgenre that we tend to associate with the 70s and 80s. The gameplay, whilst needing time to adjust to, does still hold up, I think. The enemy designs and inventory management were incredibly influential and made the experience utterly unique. But you just cannot justify that voice acting.
What is this all about? I can't figure it out at all.
Beats me too.
We all enjoy it in the modern gaming zeitgeist as a dive into the past and a so bad it's good type of experience, but it certainly wasn't intentional. Hence why when they remade it for the GameCube they mostly got rid of it all. It came down to bad Japanese translations and, dare I say, not very good voice actors. However, Metal Gear Solid somehow overcame all odds and still holds up. It never feels like a comedy or a spoof of classic action movies, but still allows itself to be silly. Yes, the characters start off cliched and the narrative seems a little generic, but over the hours you'll spend playing the game, all of these problems either work themselves out, or you just grow not to care. Upon booting the game for the first time, I found the characters just a royalty-free James Bond, M, Moneypenny, the Bond Girl of the Month, and the charming British villain. But after only an hour or two, I came to realise that these were fully realised new characters that held a lot of potential. Their traits and personal history and relationships with each other all felt natural and well earned. The story has themes of genetics, love in war, and blindly following orders, the latter being cleverly used in a gameplay context as well as a narrative one. Many characters, including the main villain, tell our protagonist, Solid Snake, that he's hardwired to be a soldier. They say that he's just built differently and follows the instructions given to him without a second thought on how it will affect him or those that he cares for. Snake does as he's told, as that's what he's always done. He's a soldier and that's what he was made to be. Following orders and taking the lives of people that stand in the way is like breathing to him. In fact, he tells Meryl a few hours in that killing is just one of those things that gets easier the more you do it. The game manages to involve the player here in a very meta way, since you as an active participant in the story will also just follow orders blindly. When you call Campbell on your codec, you're going to do whatever he tells you to do. In the same way that Snake has been hardwired to obey his commands, so have you as a gamer. We're used to doing as we're told in order to avoid that dreaded game over screen. In fact, I made a whole video about this very concept and how it relates to the original BioShock, so you should go check that out if you're interested. Back on topic though, Metal Gear Solid has a very clever, tongue-in-cheek way of keeping the player engaged whilst letting them know that they shouldn't be taking it too seriously. As I said earlier, there are some cheesy lines in here, but I don't think they originate from bad writing or translations, and they certainly don't come from bad performances. I see these excerpts of dialogue as Kojima giving us a cheeky wink and letting us in on the joke. Lines like, "You've got a great butt," and "It's like one of my favourite Japanese animes" are so fundamentally daft, yet the voice actors deliver them with all such sincerity that it just kind of works. I can see how people could believe that the performers didn't realise that these lines weren't meant to be taken seriously, but I think it was all intentional. It's not exactly out of character for this game to be a little self-aware after all. The title is infamous for its inspired use of the hardware and for consistently breaking the fourth wall. The tone is set pretty early on when Snake gets out of the water at the very beginning of the game. Campbell gives you a call and gives you a rough synopsis of your assignment and the basic controls and functionality of the codec. He tells Snake to press the select button in order to access the codec menu. He doesn't address the player though, he's talking directly to Snake, which begs the question, what button is Snake supposed to be pressing? It's nonsensical, but the game doesn't really care, it's just happy to have fun being weird. The codec itself is actually a fountain of plot holes and contrivances, yet none of them seem to detract from the experience. It's established to you early on that the codec is a very small cochlear implant located in Snake's ear, so that he can hear and talk to Campbell, Naomi and Mei Ling. However, in several instances, Snake comments on certain aspects in conversation that would only be possible if he could physically see who he was talking to. He directs some flirtation towards Mei Ling, calling her cute, and in the climax he visibly responds to seeing Master Miller reveal himself to be Liquid Snake. If the codec system is a small implant in his ear, he definitely shouldn't be able to see the faces of people that he's talking to. Around the halfway point in the game, Snake enters a showdown with Sniper Wolf, and after defeating her, we enter a cutscene that involves us being tortured by Revolver Ocelot. Before the procedure starts, he gives us a monologue and explains the controls to us, similarly to the way Campbell did at the start. He tells us to mash the circle button to gradually refill our life bar, and if we choose to give up, then we should press the select button. He warns us that there are no continues and not to use autofire. And let's just say that on my first playthrough, I overestimated my abilities to mash the button fast enough. I ended up dying, and lo and behold, no continue option. I was booted back to the main menu and had to reload my last save, which meant I had to redo the whole backtracking section to acquire the PSG-1, take on Sniper Wolf again, and this time make sure to open the codec and save before triggering the cutscene. I was surprised to hear Mei Ling say something along the lines of, "You should save, I have a bad feeling about something up ahead." The game is self-aware to a T, and it's not ashamed of it. I think that the game's most famous use of breaking the fourth wall is within the Psycho Mantis fight. In order to simulate being able to read your mind, he actually reads the memory card of your PlayStation and tells you what you've been playing. He can say, "You like playing Castlevania, don't you?" which goes far to not only build up Mantis as an unsettling character, but also the game as something far ahead of its time. He actually tells you to place your DualShock on the floor, and he'll make it move with the power of his mind. In reality, it's literally just setting off the rumble inside of the controller, and today seems pretty rudimentary. However, try to bear in mind that the original DualShock pad released in 1997, with Metal Gear Solid releasing in '98, just over a year later. The concept of having your controller vibrate when certain things happen in-game was novel, and nothing else was using the hardware in this way at the time. Kojima obviously liked the gimmick so much that he used it again later on when Naomi tells Snake and the player to hold the controller up to their arm after the torture sequence. The vibration is meant to simulate some type of massage to soothe the player after all of that button mashing. As if making use of every aspect of the PlayStation's DualShock wasn't enough, the team at Konami even managed to integrate the controller port into the mechanics of the boss fight. When taking on Psycho Mantis, he's able to read your mind and predict all of your attacks. You try to punch him, shoot him, or do anything, and he'll preemptively move out of the way. It's nigh on impossible to actually land a hit on the guy. Until you get a call from Campbell who advises you to switch your controller from port 1 to port 2, as Psycho Mantis won't be able to read your inputs this way. And guess what? It works! You can now actually land hits on the boss and progress with the story. It was obviously a creative, albeit risky decision to implement these sorts of mechanics into the game, but it obviously paid off. Even if you're playing a newer port of the game and can't physically unplug your controller and switch it to a different port, there are new workarounds. If you're playing on the PS3 or the Vita, then you can bring up the menu and assign yourself to player 2, or if you're on a PC, you can use the keyboard instead of a gamepad. This kind of fourth wall breaking madness is so well integrated into the experience that people had to think of other ways to translate the experience to different systems. The game, to be frank, just wouldn't be the same without it. Nothing goes to waste in Metal Gear Solid. Think of the screen cutting to black with the infamous Hideo text lingering around in the top right to simulate your television being taken over. Granted, it doesn't have the same effect playing on a modern flat-screen TV and high-resolution monitors, but back when TVs actually showed displays like this, it actively immersed the user into the world. But just as the game has you hooked and invested, it boots you back to the real world with sections like trying to find Meryl's codec frequency. Relatively early on, Snake converses with the ArmsTech president Kenneth Baker, who tells our protagonist to find the frequency on the back of the CD case. Many players found themselves scouring the base of Shadow Moses for hours searching for the dreaded CD case, only to usually have it explained to them by someone else. No, he means the actual CD case that the game comes in. If you reverse the game's box and take a look at the in-game screenshots, you can see Snake talking to Meryl on frequency 140.15, lest we forget. Like I said, nothing goes to waste in Metal Gear Solid. Even the box art has a role to play in the narrative. I love the way that it's so cartoonishly bonkers, yet keeps a straight face the entire time. There's a whole bunch of video gamey tropes that, in a modern AAA title, would either be explained away via some forced exposition, or maybe even omitted entirely. I'm talking about the cliche keycard door system with different security levels, or the random trapdoors in the tank station. These seem awfully risky as a working environment for these guards, but it's never even acknowledged. I like how certain bosses like the Hind seem to take tens of Stinger missiles to take down. One chopper and around 10 minutes of firing rockets into its hull. Or during the first encounter with Sniper Wolf, you can shoot her in the face 10 times and when the cutscene triggers, she's absolutely fine. There's no explanation on how she survived so many gunshot wounds, you just play the game, acknowledge it, and move on. The game wants to take you on a ride, and the best way to appreciate it and have fun is to just let it. Don't question why there's an absurd amount of gun cameras in the corridor before the Metal Gear Rex room. Just accept it, and I guarantee that you'll enjoy yourself a lot more than if you try to out-logic it. To sum up, I think Metal Gear Solid is a brilliant piece of gaming history, and although certain aspects have aged relatively poorly, it truly has stood the test of time. Like I said at the start of the video, it went on to spawn a massive series with a die-hard fanbase. It received multiple sequels, prequels, and even a remake on the GameCube. I've not played the Twin Snakes myself, but from what I've heard, I think I'm gonna give it a miss. I've seen a few cutscenes, and I'm not exactly sure how intentional it is, but they've really gone overboard with the campiness angle to the degree where Snake is doing backflips like every 10 seconds. During the torture sequence, Ocelot delivers his usual spiel about not using auto-fire, but this time stares down the camera and directly addresses the player. I'm sure that some people got a kick out of this, but I can't help but find that it fundamentally misses the point. I've spent the majority of this video praising the tone of the original game, how it verges on camp without going so far as to become a parody of itself. And from what I've seen, that's kind of what the Twin Snakes is. But hey, if I'm getting the wrong end of the stick, then be sure to let me know if you think I'm missing out on some underrated masterpiece or something. However, I did thoroughly enjoy my time with the original PS1 classic, and I'm planning on playing through the rest of the series, so expect some videos on those games in the future. I am totally ready to be strapped in for a ride with this series, and I'm happy to go wherever it takes me, for better or for worse. I'm already invested in these characters, and I want to spend more time in this world, and maybe even witness some love blooming on the battlefield. Hey everybody, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like down below if you enjoyed this video. I can't believe it took me so long to get around to playing this thing. It's been in my backlog for years, and my brother's a big fan of the Metal Gear series, and he said, yeah, you should play it, and I was like, yeah, it's on the list, but I finally got around to it. I really enjoyed it, and I do plan on playing through the rest of the series, like I said in the video, so I will probably get around to making some videos on the future games in the series as well. So yeah, if you want to see some more of that, hit the subscribe button down below, and yeah, some of that will be coming soon. Thank you guys very much for watching. See ya!